Right now, one of two things may be true. You're living in the original universe. It may be the first reality, the place where everything actually began. Or every person you have met, every memory you have formed, and every moment you have experienced exists inside a simulation created by something outside your universe. At first, that sounds like science fiction. Your life does not feel simulated. Pain still hurts, time still passes, and nothing about this feels like a game. But the strongest argument for simulation theory has nothing to do with déjà vu, the Mandela effect, or glitches appearing in the sky. It comes from something much simpler. Numbers. Imagine that somewhere in the future, humanity becomes advanced enough to simulate an entire world. Not only its buildings or its weather, but also its people. Inside the simulation are beings who think, remember, dream, suffer, and question whether their world is real. They do not see computer code, they see walls, trees, clouds, and other people from their perspective. They are not inside a simulation, they are simply alive. Now imagine humanity does not create only one of these worlds. It creates thousands, followed by millions. Each world contains billions of conscious people. Suddenly, the number of people living inside simulations becomes much larger than the number living in the original universe. There might be 10 billion people in base reality, but there could be quadrillions of simulated people spread across countless artificial worlds. If simulated observers outnumber original observers by millions to one, what are the chances that you happen to be born in the rare original reality? Why should you assume you're one of the first? Why would you not be one of the copies? This is the heart of the simulation argument. It does not claim that we have found a glitch. Instead, it asks a statistical question. If civilizations can create conscious simulations and they create enough of them, where would someone like you most likely exist? Would you be inside the one original world, or inside one of the countless worlds created after it? Imagine reality as a tree. At the top is one base universe. That universe creates 1,000 simulated worlds. Each of those worlds eventually creates another 1,000. Those worlds then create even more. After only a few levels, almost every conscious being exists somewhere below the original universe. The top level still exists, but it has become incredibly rare. It would be like reaching into a container holding one white marble and a billion black ones, then expecting to choose the white marble. You could choose it, but it would not be the most likely result. Philosopher Nick Bostrom framed this as three possibilities. The first possibility is that civilizations like ours almost always disappear before becoming advanced enough to create conscious simulations. Technology may continue improving, but progress is not guaranteed forever. A civilization might destroy itself through war, environmental collapse, uncontrolled technology, or something we have not yet imagined. There may be a barrier between our current stage and true technological maturity that almost no civilization crosses. The second possibility is that advanced civilizations survive but choose not to create many simulated minds. Perhaps creating conscious worlds is considered cruel. A realistic simulation of human history would contain disease, grief, violence, fear, and death. The people inside would not experience that suffering as artificial to them. It would be completely real. Advanced societies might therefore decide that creating conscious worlds is morally unacceptable. Or perhaps advanced beings simply would not care about recreating us. We assume the future would be fascinated by human history because humans are fascinated by themselves. A civilization millions of years ahead of us may consider our species unimportant. The third possibility is the disturbing one. Civilizations survive, conscious simulation becomes possible, and advanced beings create enormous numbers of artificial worlds. If that happens, simulated observers could vastly outnumber biological ones. Being in base reality would no longer be normal, it would become the exception, but the argument depends on one enormous question. Can a simulation actually be conscious? A computer can simulate fire without becoming hot. It can simulate water without making anything wet. Could it simulate a brain without producing an inner experience? Imagine a digital brain that perfectly copies every neuron in a human brain. Ask it a question, and it answers. Tell it a joke, and it laughs. Threaten to shut it down, and it begs you not to. It remembers a childhood, describes fear, and insists that it is alive. But is anyone actually experiencing those things? Or is the machine only calculating what a conscious person would say? We do not know the answer. One view says consciousness depends on what a brain does, not what it is made from. A biological brain uses neurons. A digital brain might use circuits, but if both process information in the same way, perhaps both create awareness. If that is true, a simulated person would not merely imitate a human. They would actually be a person. Turning off the simulation might be less like closing a game and more like ending a life. Another view says that simulation is not enough. A simulated stomach does not digest food, a simulated heart does not pump blood, a simulated brain might reproduce every visible behavior, while remaining empty inside. It could say that it feels pain without anyone actually feeling anything. If that is true, simulated people would not count as observers. There could be trillions of digital characters. But if none of them are conscious, the probability argument collapses. The numbers only matter if someone inside the simulation actually wakes up. Then there is the problem of computing power. The universe contains galaxies, stars, particles, weather, cells, brains, and constant interactions between all of them. Simulating every detail might require more resources than any civilization could possess. But perhaps a simulator would not need to calculate everything at full detail. Modern games already simplify distant objects and focus processing power on what the player can observe. An advanced simulation might do something similar. A distant planet could be represented by basic properties until someone approached it. The creators could establish physical laws and allow complexity to emerge on its own. Stars, planets, life, and civilizations could develop from those rules without anyone designing every event individually. This can make our universe feel strangely compatible with simulation. Simple laws produce enormous complexity, but resemblance is not proof. Mathematics is not automatically computer code, a speed limit is not automatically a processing limit, quantum uncertainty is not automatically reality waiting to render. A natural universe would also require consistent rules. Almost anything we discover can be explained both ways. If reality is smooth, someone can claim the simulation is extremely detailed. If reality has a smallest scale, someone can call it a pixel. If events are random, someone can say the simulator uses randomness. A claim that can explain every possible result may be impossible to test. There is also a deeper problem with the probability itself. Which observers are we comparing ourselves to? Are we comparing ourselves to every conscious being, only humans, or only beings with memories and experiences similar to yours? Suppose future civilizations create millions of simulations, but almost none of them contain people like us. The number of simulated worlds alone would tell us very little. We would need to know how many conscious observers exist inside them and how similar their experiences are to ours. We currently know none of that, saying there is a precise 99% chance that we are simulated, therefore gives the argument more certainty than it deserves. The honest conclusion is conditional. If consciousness can be simulated, if civilizations survive long enough, if artificial worlds are affordable, if advanced beings create them in enormous numbers, and if observers like us are common inside them, then simulation may be far more likely than base reality. But remove even one assumption, and the answer can change completely. There is one future event that could shift the argument dramatically. Humanity might create a conscious digital mind. This would not merely be a machine that sounds alive. It would be a mind that genuinely remembers, fears, hopes, and knows that it exists. The moment that happens, one of the greatest objections disappears. We would know that consciousness can exist inside a created system. Digital minds could also be copied. One mind could become 10, and 10 could become a million. Artificial observers could eventually outnumber biological humans. Humanity would become the kind of civilization the simulation argument depends on. That still would not prove that someone created us. Humans can create fire without proving that every natural fire was created by humans, but it would show that one reality can produce another reality containing genuine experience. Once we become one link in that chain, it becomes harder to assume that we must be the first link. Perhaps humanity is beginning the process. Perhaps we live in base reality near the moment reality learns how to copy itself. Or perhaps another civilization reached this point before us. Perhaps it created minds. Those minds created worlds, and our universe exists somewhere deep inside that structure. There may be no experiment we can perform from inside our reality that would allow us to know for certain. Every telescope, equation, and thought remains inside the universe. We are trying to question, even if we found something that looked like code, it could simply be another law of nature. Even if our universe was created, the mystery would not disappear. It would only move upward. Who created the creators? Do they live in base reality? Are they simulated too? Where did the first reality come from? Simulation theory may explain how our universe began. It cannot explain why existence itself exists. Eventually, there must either be an original level or an endless chain with no beginning. If there is one base reality, someone must live there. The argument only asks whether it is likely to be us. Maybe it is. Perhaps conscious simulation is impossible. Perhaps advanced civilizations always disappear. We could be living in the original world just before it begins creating copies. Or maybe copies of us already exist. Maybe this moment has been recreated thousands of times. Each version remembers the same past. Each version believes it is asking this question for the first time. There is no evidence that this is happening, but if conscious simulations become possible, there may be no obvious limit to how often a life can be copied. That is what makes the argument difficult to forget. It does not need a glitch in the sky. It does not need a secret message hidden in physics. It only needs conscious worlds to become possible, followed by those worlds becoming common. If that never happens, we may be living in the original universe. If it happens on a large enough scale, we may be living inside one of the copies. Right now, both paths remain open. You cannot prove that this world is simulated, but you also cannot prove that it is the first reality. You can touch the wall beside you. You can watch the sun rise. You can feel love, pain, fear, and the passage of time. All of it is real as an experience, but none of it tells you whether your reality is original. A world does not have to be the first world to feel real. A life does not become meaningless because something created the conditions that made it possible. Whatever this universe is, your choices still create consequences inside it. The question of simulation changes where reality may have come from. It does not erase what your life means from within it. But somewhere in the future, humanity may create a world. Inside it, a conscious person may stand beneath an artificial sky. They may study the laws surrounding them. They may wonder why their universe exists. They may ask whether anyone is watching, outside their reality. We may be listening. The disturbing question is not only whether our universe was created, it is whether someone above us once reached the same point, built a world and watched that world build another. Perhaps we are now living so far down the chain that even our creators no longer know where the original reality is. Maybe there is one real universe, maybe there are billions of copies, and maybe every conscious being at every level believes they were lucky enough to wake up in the first one.